Hello friends! We hope you're doing well and staying healthy wherever you are. Life is complicated, but moments like this, watching stories together, bring us closer. Let us know in the comments, where are you watching from? What time is it where you are? We love hearing from all corners of the world. No matter how far apart we are, stories like this one remind us that our hearts beat the same when it comes to love, jealousy, and fragile choices. Then and Dan, two men who once fought side by side, now stand on opposite sides of the same heart. The jealousy between them didn't just start today. It's a shadow that's been growing quietly, each encounter adding more tension. Sometimes love doesn't just hurt, it divides. And jealousy, once rooted, doesn't fade easily. What if their silent war grows louder? What if it pulls Dieu Han deeper into pain? If you were her, could you choose? Could you watch two people destroy each other for you? Jealousy changes people. It makes even the kindest hearts say cruel things, take reckless steps. Dan's silence hides a storm. Dan's protectiveness masks a fear of losing. In a house where love lingers, tension builds like smoke with no fire. One word, one look, and it could all collapse. Tell us in the comments, have you ever been caught in the middle of love and pride? What would you do if every choice meant breaking someone's heart? If love is a battlefield, then jealousy is the hidden trap. It doesn't scream, it waits. Watching Dan and Dan, you can feel it, something might break soon. This isn't just about Dieu Han's heart. It's about how people change when they fear losing love. So now we ask you, what do you think will happen next? Can love survive jealousy? Or will someone walk away wounded forever? Comment below. Your voice matters. Your story might not be so different after all. Thank you for being with us through every twist and turn of this story. If you felt something today, whether pain, hope, or reflection, don't let it fade. Hit the like button if this story touched your heart. Subscribe so you never miss what happens next in Dieu Han's journey. And don't forget to ring the bell, because every moment from here might be the one that changes everything. Love, jealousy, truth, they are just beginning to collide. Stay with us. Then step forward, offering the bowl of food with both hands. His eyes briefly met Dieu Han's, then Dan's. He forced a smile, nodded politely, and said he had to go. His voice was calm, but inside, everything trembled. That moment, seeing her with another man so close, shook him more than he expected. He didn't want to interrupt. He didn't want to cause trouble. But something in his chest told him this wasn't over, and he wasn't ready to walk away for good. As he walked away, the weight in Dan's chest only grew heavier. Every step felt uncertain. Questions echoed in his mind. Was he too late? Did she really need someone else now? He didn't blame Dan. Maybe he'd have done the same. But a quiet ache gnawed at him. He had been there through the storm. And now, watching from the outside, he felt like a stranger to her life. The fear of losing her wasn't just jealousy, it was heartbreak. Dieu Han's laughter echoed faintly behind him, mixed with Dan's voice. That sound cut deeper than words. Maybe she had moved on. Maybe he was the one still stuck in memories. But love doesn't fade that easily, not when it's real. And as he stepped back into the quiet road, Dan knew this wasn't the end, at least, not for him. Dan watched then disappear beyond the gate, a flicker of pride rising in his chest. He didn't mean to enjoy it, but he did. For once, it felt like he was the one chosen. Standing beside Dieu Han, her warmth so close, made him feel like everything was finally turning in his favor. The way she smiled, the way she didn't chase after Dan, it all comforted him. Still, a small voice inside whispered, "Be careful. This moment might not last forever." Her presence beside him was everything he had wanted. For months, maybe years, Dan had imagined this moment, just her and him, no interruptions. Now, with Dan gone, that picture seemed real. He almost reached for her hand but hesitated. Deep inside, he knew Dieu Han wasn't his yet. Not fully. And that scared him. Because if Dan returned with the right words, with the past on his side, would she stay? Or would she drift back into the arms that had once held her? Dan leaned slightly closer, his voice softer now. "I was really scared, Han," he said. "I thought I'd lost you out there." His words were true, but part of him also needed her to hear them. To remember that he had been waiting, worrying, aching. He wanted her to see him not just as a friend, but as the one who had stayed when others left. But Dieu Han's eyes were hard to read. They held both gratitude and something distant. In that quiet moment, Dan realized love was never a guarantee, it was a risk. He had placed his heart in her hands long ago, but she still held it loosely. Watching her gaze linger toward the door Dan had just walked through stirred an ease in him. He wanted to fight for her, but he feared losing with dignity more than winning with doubt. Still, for now, she was here, beside him. And even borrowed moments can feel like forever until they vanish. Dan walked down the quiet road, the sound of his own footsteps echoing louder than ever. He didn't look back, though every part of him wanted to. His chest ached, not from what he saw, but from what it might mean. Dieu Han standing with Dan wasn't just coincidence, it felt like fate mocking him. Maybe he had come too late. Maybe he had already lost. But even if his heart cracked open, he couldn't walk away without knowing the truth. Memories of their journey together flooded his mind, the storms they weathered, the silence they shared, the way she once held his hand in fear. That wasn't something a stranger could replace. Dan clenched his fists. He knew what he saw, but he didn't trust it. Emotions were often louder than reality. What if Dan was just a shadow passing by? What if Dieu Han still needed him, deep down? He couldn't let assumptions decide the ending. Not this time. He turned around, not fast, not proud, just determined. This wasn't about jealousy anymore. It was about clarity. He needed to see for himself if what was between them still remained. He had no plan, just a restless heart and a bowl of silence left behind. Dan knew Dan had waited too, but that didn't make him right. Sometimes, the loudest love is the one that stays quiet the longest. And Dan had stayed quiet for too long already. Dan's mind raced. What if Dan was already confessing everything? What if he used this fragile moment to fill in the spaces Dan once held? He couldn't bear that thought. Love wasn't about being possessive, but about showing up, especially when the heart is breaking. If Dieu Han had moved on, he would respect it. But if there was still a flicker of hope, he would not let it die quietly. Not while someone else hovered so close to her. His feet moved faster now, guided by instinct more than logic. He didn't know what he would say. Maybe nothing. Maybe just stand there and watch. But then knew he had to go back. Not to fight. Not to win. But to understand. Because if he left again without trying, it would haunt him forever. And deep inside, he still believed that love, real love, doesn't vanish just because someone else steps in. It waits. And he was done running. When Dan stepped through the gate again, the scene struck him like a slap. Dan was sitting comfortably, laughing softly, holding the bowl of food Dan had prepared. Dan froze. He had pictured giving it to Dieu Han himself. The scent of the dish lingered in the air like betrayal. Still, Dan forced a smile, pretending the ache in his chest didn't exist. He greeted them both casually, though his voice trembled slightly. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Dan looked up, surprised but not guilty. "Oh, this is yours?" he asked with a grin. "You cook well." She insisted I try it. Dan's lips twitched, the smile still frozen. "Glad you liked it," he replied, tone polite but eyes sharp. There was no open insult, just tension thick enough to cut. They both knew what this was. A silent duel, fought with words dipped in honey. And Dieu Han, caught between them, said nothing, just stirred her tea with trembling fingers. Inside Dan, something sharp twisted. He watched Dan's casual smirk, the way he handled the spoon like he owned the moment. Dan's chest tightened. This wasn't just rivalry, it was war. He'd brought the food with care, thinking of her, and now another man sat in his place. The smile on Dan's lips was fake, frozen. He had mastered silence, but his silence now screamed. No man touched what he cherished, and no one would take her from him without a fight. Dan leaned back, sensing the fire beneath Dan's quiet posture. He didn't flinch, he welcomed it. The tension was fuel, and Dan burned with it. He had waited too long. Watched from the shadows while Then got close. Now, he tasted what Then used to have. And he wasn't going to let it go. Beneath his grin was a blade of determination. If Then wanted a silent war, Dan was ready for a loud one. Let the game begin. Dieu Han stood between them, but it felt like she was miles away. Neither man saw her now. They only saw each other. To storms behind calm expressions, Dan's fists clenched as he hit the egg. Dan's jaw tensed with quiet victory. They weren't speaking, but their presence shouted louder than words. It was never really about politeness. This was territory. This was instinct. And neither man would back down until one was left standing in her heart. Dieu Han rushed into the kitchen, her hands trembling. She didn't want them to see how shaken she was. The pan sizzled as she tossed in the vegetables, they were popping like echoes of her panic. Her mind raced. Why did Dan return? Why was Dan acting so possessive? She forced her focus back to the food, stirring faster than needed. Cooking had always calmed her, but not today. Today, everything tasted of conflict, and she could feel it boiling over. Dan sat stiffly on the edge of the bench. His eyes followed every sound from the kitchen. Each clang of the pan felt like a blow to his chest. Was she cooking for him, or for Dan? His pride warred with his worry. He tried to act unfazed, but his heart pounded like thunder. He didn't want to read into things, but he already had. And what he read hurt. Maybe it was too late, but he couldn't stop hoping. Dan leaned back, smug and relaxed. He heard the clatter too, but to him, it was a victory drum. She was cooking. She hadn't told him to leave. She didn't stop then from watching. But she didn't run after him either. In Dan's mind, this was his win. He imagined her bringing the food, smiling at him. Dan could sit and stew all he wanted. Dan had already entered her world. Now, he just needed to close the door behind him. The door creaked. Dieu Han stepped out, carrying the tray with two bowls and a plate of stir-fried greens. Her hands were steady, but her eyes betrayed the storm within. She set the tray down between them without looking directly at either man. The silence screamed. She cleared her throat. I made this quickly. Eat before it gets cold. Her voice was even, but her heart ached. She wished they could just talk, not fight, not turn her kindness into a battlefield. Dan reached for the chopsticks slowly. He didn't want to be the first to eat, but he couldn't let Dan be first either. His pride balanced on thin thread. He looked at Dieu Han briefly. She looked exhausted. He wanted to hold her, ask if she was all right, but now wasn't the time. Not with Dan's smirk in the corner of his eye. So, he picked up a bite and forced it down. Dan picked up his chopsticks with no hesitation. He took a big bite, exaggerated his delight. This is delicious, he said, glancing at Dan. You've improved a lot, Dieu Han. His words were sharp, cloaked in charm. She looked at him briefly, then looked away. Dan saw it as a win, but inside, a flicker of doubt sparked. Was she really happy he was here, or just too tired to ask him to leave? Dieu Han sat beside them, but her soul drifted elsewhere. Their presence exhausted her. This meal, meant to be warm and simple, had turned into another test. She watched them eat, both pretending to be calm, but she felt their tension like knives brushing against her skin. She wished someone would speak, really speak, but pride silenced them both, so she sat quietly, hoping the food would fill the silence neither of them dared to break. Dieu Han sighed, barely audible, but both men heard it. She didn't say a word, but her furrowed brow and tired eyes spoke volumes, and froze, chopsticks midair. Dan shifted in his seat. For a moment, silence thickened again, this time with shame. They had made her feel tense again. Both men looked at her, then glanced at each other. The unspoken message was clear. This wasn't the time to fight, at least, not in front of her. Dan broke the silence first, forcing a light chuckle. Then, this dish tastes better than it looks, he said, nodding politely. Then blinked, surprised. He cleared his throat. Thanks, I just brought what I could. Their words were awkward, but the effort was real. Dieu Han glanced between them, unsure what to make of it. Was it a truce, or just another game still? It was better than the Cold War they had waged minutes ago. For the first time that day, the tension eased. They still didn't trust each other, not really, but something in Dieu Han's quiet sadness had humbled them both. Dan poured tea for Than without being asked, then nodded in thanks, avoiding eye contact. Dieu Han didn't smile, but her shoulders relaxed slightly. Peace, however fragile, had returned to the table. No one dared speak too loudly. Everyone knew this moment was temporary, but for now, it was enough. But behind the exchanged words and gestures, something remained unsaid. Both men were still watching each other, eyes sharp with quiet calculation. Each smile held tension. Each sip of tea felt rehearsed. What if one of them made the next move first? What would Dieu Han do if she had to choose again? Would peace shatter in a blink? If you were her, how would you face two hearts that never stop colliding? Things are far from over. Every shared meal, every look, holds a tension that could erupt at any time. What will happen when one finally crosses the line? Will Dieu Han be caught in the storm once again? To find out, don't miss the next episode. Hit like if you're feeling the tension, subscribe for more emotional turns, and ring the bell so you won't miss what comes next. This story is just getting started.